يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد. All praise is due to Allah. We seek His guidance and His forgiveness, and we seek refuge in Allah from the evil of ourselves and the whispering of our desires. Whom Allah guides, no one can misguide, and whom He allows to be misled, no one can guide. And I bear witness that there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah alone, having no partners, and that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is His slave and His messenger and His perfect worshipper. Growing up in the 90s, I remember a commercial that used to come at the beginning of 10 o'clock p.m. Right before the news would come on, there would always be a very short advert that would come on. And the advert had the camera zooming into some dark alleyways. And they would say, you would hear a voice saying, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? I'm sure some of you even remember this advert. It was a nationwide campaign. And the premise of this short 1-minute clip was to remind parents that if you were a good parent, when the night would come, you would know where your children were. Your children would be indoors. You would have protected them by having them within your home at that point in time. And a bad parent would be a parent who doesn't know where their children are at 10 p.m. when the night falls, or when the night has set in. And so the Prophet ﷺ, even he taught us when he said to Aisha radiallahu anha, "O Aisha, seek refuge in غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبْ." Seek refuge in the night when it overpowers. Seek refuge in the darkness of the night. Nonetheless, the point being is that your parents were being taught, or they were being reminded of the importance of knowing where their children are. However, the 90s are a long time away. Now we're in the year 2013. And for the first time in human history, the door is not the only thing that parents have to close anymore. You can have all your children inside your home with you. And it could be 10 o'clock, or 7 o'clock p.m., or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And for the first time for parents, having your children in front of your eyes is no longer enough. Through technology, the world can come inside. And so today, inshallah ta'ala, the khutbah, my goal of the khutbah is to show a couple of different aspects to the difficulties and the challenges of raising children in this generation. Because technology is advancing so fast, and many times, even I was reading a nationwide study last week, where the majority of American parents simply just give up. They give up the notion that they can compete with the knowledge that their children have with regards to technology. And so they give them technology and simply hope that they're going to be okay. They give them what they desire, and they simply hope that everything will work out in the end. And what made me do this research for this khutbah was that a father came up to me and he said, Akhi, I really need you to speak to my son. He's reached the age where he starts speaking to girls, and he said to me, "Di mas'uliyatkum, this is your responsibility." And I said to him, "Hold on a second. It's your responsibility, first of all. You didn't consult me about having a child. He's your son. And so, he's your responsibility, first of all." And then I asked him the second question. I said, how does he communicate? He said, with the phone. I said, what type of phone does he have? And he said to me, iPhone. Of course, it's an iPhone. I said to him, good job. You gave him the world at his fingertips. And now you expect me to come and just sit, and in 1 hour, I'm going to straighten him for the rest of his life. That's not going to happen. What will straighten him is two parents who are on top of their child every hour, every day, until that child has grown up. That's why when they plant trees, what do? They call it staking the tree. They will tie that tree down with rope until that tree is strong enough that it will rise straight, that it will grow straight, and then they let go of the rope. In landscaping, when you read about this, they say especially in places that are on an incline or in very windy locations. And it doesn't get more windy than raising a child in the United States of America, trying to raise them with Islamic values and Islamic culture. So, the first thing is to recognize that this responsibility is a responsibility that does not change. If everything else in the world changes, if every aspect of raising a child changes, the responsibility of a parent to their children does not change. Because Allah Azza wa Jalla placed this on us when He said, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ. Allah said, "O you who believe, protect yourselves and your family from a fire whose fuel is men and stones. عليها ملائكة غلاظ شداد لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. It is guarded, it is inhabited by angels that are strong and severe. They do not disobey Allah Azza wa Jalla what He commands them to do, and they do what they are commanded. So that is the first. Secondly, the Prophet ﷺ further articulated this when he said, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. That every single one of you is a shepherd, and every single one of you is responsible for your flock. Every single one of you is responsible for the family that Allah Azza wa Jalla has entrusted you with. So, bearing that responsibility, inshallah ta'ala, we will discuss a number of points with regards to the importance of being ever vigilant, ever cautious in raising your children. Another hadith that is even more frightening, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, 3 people will not enter paradise. Why is this topic important? The Prophet ﷺ said 3 people will not enter paradise. One of the people that he mentioned is, he said, a dayuth. And the Sahaba said this, they said, who is a dayuth, Ya Rasulullah? And then he said, الَّذِي لَا يُبَالِي مَنْ دَخَلَ عَلَى أَهْلِهِ. The one who does not care who is entering upon his family. The one who doesn't care who's speaking to his daughter. He doesn't care who his son is texting. He doesn't care what images they are being exposed to. This is the definition of a dayuth. So, we being an ummah that has, alhamdulillah, praiseworthy ghira, a protective jealousy over our family, this is something that Allah Azza wa Jalla loves. This is something that, inshallah ta'ala, we should be very concerned with. So, inshallah ta'ala, I wanted to begin just by speaking about the thing that pretty much everyone carries around, the cell phone. There are a couple of national studies that were done with regards to cell phones. And a Pew Internet research showed that 71% of teenagers had cell phones in this country. 71%. 59% at the age of 12 to 14. So early teens, almost 60% of them had cell phones. And then by the time they reached 15 to 17, 83% of them had cell phones. And my argument is not going to be that your children should not have cell phones. That's not the case that I'm going to make. Every single one of us realizes the importance of cell phones. When your child leaves your home, you want to be able to contact them. If there's an emergency, you want them to be able to contact you. My question that I want you all to think about is, have you thought about what the capabilities are of the cell phone that you are giving your child? And does your child need all of those capabilities? So with your average smartphone, with your average iPhone that you might have given to your 14-year-old son or your 15-year-old daughter, they can take pictures and they can send pictures. They can have video conversations, live streaming video conversations with anyone at any time. Whether they're even in their room, they can have a video conversation with anyone. They have many times unlimited texting. They have the ability to talk to anyone via Skype or Tango or any one of these services. Sawt Surah, live video feed with anyone in the world. Does your child need all of these things? Most parents, when you ask them, what do you want your child, why are you giving them a cell phone? They say, so that when I call them, they can answer me. Okay, well, they don't need a smartphone for that, do they? Do they need to be able to have access to their email 24/7? If you remember when BlackBerry first came out, they would only give them to people who had corporate accounts, because those were people who needed access to their email 24/7. Does a kid in high school or middle school, do they need access to the internet 24/7? The answer is no, they don't. In the vast majority of cases, no, they don't. And so, why is it that you are giving them these things? Why is it that you are giving them these things? Do you really think that children are not going to abuse this type of technology? The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَيَعْجَبُ بِشَابٍ لَيْسَتْ لَهُ صَبْوَةٌ. The Prophet ﷺ said that Allah Azza wa Jalla is amazed at a young person who doesn't have an inclination, مَيْلٌ إِلَى الْهَوَى. A person who does not have an inclination towards lust and desires. Because we know passions walk with the young. They're very passionate. You know, if they fall in love, well, that love is the most passionate love in the world. And all it takes, wallahi, from the most righteous or the best kid that you spent your life raising, all it takes is for them to fall in love with one person, and their world can be turned upside down. That which is right becomes wrong, and that which is wrong becomes right, and they will make the biggest mistakes in the course of that love. And so you are responsible for protecting them as much as you can. Protecting them as much as you can. And protection also means conversing with them, educating them, discussing with them, all of these things. And that is one of the reasons why I wanted to open up this conversation today on the minbar. And I know that it's a conversation that in many masajid it's not taking place, but we need to have these conversations. 2, with regards to looking at what do you expect of a child who has unlimited access to the internet? Well, one of the issues that comes about is pornography. Looking at pornography, looking at very lewd films. And again, before, myself growing up, if a child, for example, in high school or middle school, they wanted to have access to these types of images, they would have to really undertake something that was very, very scary. They have to go into a very wicked place, or they have to get access to magazines or something like that. And now, even parents before, when they would set up a computer, they would set it up in the living room and they'd set up parental controls where they would give children who are 13 and under access of a 13-year-old and under to the internet. However, now, with your average phone, you can access anything, period. And they have high-speed internet. They just connect to the wireless connection wherever they are, and they have access to all of that. Well, how does that affect this child growing up? When at 12 years old, the average child in the United States, 50% of children who have reached the age of 7 have seen their first pornographic image, boys and girls, by the age of 7 years old. So when you're talking about 12, it's much less. You can have a child who is addicted to pornography at the age of 12. So what do you think about this person who at the age of 12 has seen his first pornographic image and is consistently watching pornography every single day, or however regularly it is, for 10 years, 12 years, 14 years? By the time they get married at the age of 25, even though, mashallah, he's marrying such a beautiful sister, he has already seen such lewdness. They have seen so many images of women for the past 12, 15 years of their life that no matter how pretty she is, she becomes boring to him. Brothers, inshallah, please move forward. And so you have a person who is getting married and immediately you see marital problems. And anyone who doesn't understand or who doesn't believe in the power that pornography has to destroy marriages, go speak to any marriage counselor and ask them about the results of pornography and how it affects people's marriages, and they will tell you that it is extremely destructive. So what then about a community where we are giving them tools, where you are giving your son or you're giving your daughter access to everything, right? Recognize that just as you are giving them what they've been begging you for, recognize also that you are also giving them something that can be extremely dangerous for them, extremely destructive. And as a parent, it is your responsibility not to simply give your children what they want. You are the parent and they are not the parent for a reason. You have experience and they do not have experience. You have wisdom and they do not have wisdom. So it is your responsibility to not simply give them what they want, but to give them always what they need. And at times, many times, what they need is not necessarily what they want. So to make sure, inshallah ta'ala, that we are aware of the issue of pornography as well, and that when, through the proliferation of technology, through the fact that everyone has cell phones, smartphones, laptops, iPads, all of these things, your children very much can have access to all of these things at any point in time, in the privacy of their own rooms, in the privacy of the bathroom, wherever it is that they are. So you have to be able to come to have a conversation and figure out how can we prevent these things. Can we as a community, for example, have some of our IT professionals set up a day where they come and we hand over our devices to them and they set up parental controls for us if we don't have the technological know-how to do that? Well, that's something that communities can do. It's just a matter of us, inshallah ta'ala, putting our brains together and our minds together and making it happen. The third thing that I wanted to mention, inshallah ta'ala, with regards to the issue of raising children in a technological environment is the problem of immediate gratification. The problem of immediate gratification. We live amongst a generation where we want everything and we want it now. So we want fast food and we want it now. We want to download a movie, and if it takes more than 10 minutes, then my internet is too slow. And just like that, everything is supposed to be fast. We always want higher download speed, higher upload speed, all of these things. However, when you are constantly giving new gratification, when a person has been programmed like that, one of the problems that comes with that is that this person is always looking for what's next. They're always looking for what's next. And so there was a book that was written by Harold Schwartz, who was an English professor at Bucknell University, and he wrote a book called On Waiting, about the importance of waiting. And we always think that waiting is a waste of time. However, waiting in and of itself can be something that builds character. He says, waiting and delaying gratification can be regenerative and restful, as well as a time for inspiration and fresh ideas. Instant gratification, on the other hand, must be frantically repeated and is in the end no gratification at all. And he says, indeed, instant gratification is perhaps the endless delay of gratification. The endless delay of gratification. I know that this is very challenging. I know that these are topics that really are, very difficult for us to communicate with each other, and at times difficult to communicate even with your family. but that's the challenge. And when we try to, simply raise our children the way that we were raised, because, your number one example of how to raise a child is usually your parents. That's the image that you go by. However, when you do that, you will simply, and it very, very rarely will you be successful. Why? Because all of the inputs are different. If all of the inputs are different, how can you expect the output to be different? When you are raising your child in a different generation, their values are different. But not only that, but for many of us, we are not simply raising our children in a different generation, but a different land, different customs, different language, different environment. All of these things are different. And so, I really appreciate the statement of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, a genius statement. He said, رَبُّ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ لِجِيلِهِمْ فَإِنَّهُمْ خُلِقُوا لِجِيلٍ غَيْرَ جِيلِكُمْ. So raise your children for their generation. Because they were raised for a generation. They were raised to inherit a generation other than your generation. They were created to inherit the earth in 2013, and 2020, 2030. So their raising has to be different. The way that you approach them has to be different. And that is why it is so difficult, and that is why it is so rewarding that a person raises somebody who testifies to La ilaha illallah, that they raise somebody who has a Huwiyya Islamiyya, they have an Islamic personality. That is the challenge, and that is why the reward is so great. أقول ما سمعتم واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi man wala. I don't claim to have answers or solutions for the topics that I've raised, but I simply wanted to ignite the conversation, inshallah ta'ala. I have some suggestions that I wanted to conclude the khutbah, inshallah ta'ala, with. The first is, again, the importance of discussing these issues and to not be ashamed of discussing these issues. One time I gave this similar talk in a masjid, and a father got so upset and he started raising his voice and he started interrupting it, and he said, "You are mentioning these types of conversations in the masjid, we're in the masjid, and my son is here." I said to him, "Your son, mashallah, if you think that your son has never been exposed to any of this and he's going to public school and all of that, then you are clueless. You're absolutely clueless." And I want to make sure that all parents, when you hear these types of conversations, sometimes you think, no, my children, this is impossible. My children, this is not going to happen. And I'm telling you, do not, never distance yourself. Never think that your children are never going to be exposed to any trials or tribulations. Your children may be great, and that's great. However, if you are not vigilant and if you do not have concern, then your children are great, but you are not a great parent. Because the example that we have been given in the Quran of great parents are people who are always concerned and vigilant over their children. Allah says, أَمْ كُنْتُمْ شُهَدَاءَ إِذْ حَضَرَ يَعْقُوبَ الْمَوْتِ إِذْ قَالَ لِبَنِيهِ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِنْ بَعْدِي قَالُوا نَعْبُدُ إِلَهَكَ وَإِلَهَ آبَائِكَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْمَاعِيلَ وَإِسْحَاقَ إِلَهًا وَاحِدًا وَنَحْنُ لَهُ مُسْلِمُونَ. Yaqub alayhi salam, if there was any person who has the right to say, my children are going to be okay, it would have been Yaqub alayhi salam. If there's any person who could claim that taqwa and Islam is in his DNA, it is the son of the Prophet, the grandson of the Prophet, the father of a Prophet, the nephew of a Prophet, Yaqub alayhi salam. Yet, Allah says, were you witnessing, O Muhammad, did you witness when death came to Yaqub? What did he say to his children? He said to his children, what are you going to worship after me? They said, we are going to worship your Lord and the Lord of your fathers, Ibrahim and Ismail and Ishaq. One Lord, and we are to him in submittance. That is a father who is ever vigilant over righteous children. So don't we have more right that we be constantly vigilant over our children, that we are currently always concerned over them, that we are always checking up on them, that we are always listening to them. All of that is very, very important. The second thing that I wanted to mention is limiting screen time. Screen time. I watched an interview with Michelle Obama, and they asked her, they said, your children, how much screen time do they have? She said they have 7 hours of screen time a week. Screen time means times where you can look at a screen. Any screen. Computer screen, TV screen, telephone screen, any screen. She said they have 2 hours on Friday, they have 3 hours on Saturday, and they have 2 hours on Sunday. That's it. Other than that, they're reading a book, they're running around, they're exercising, they're doing this and they're doing that, but they're not sitting in front of a screen. They only get 7 hours of screen time a week. And I remember I was speaking to a brother who's a doctor, and he was telling me, when I told him about this, he said, that's so true. When I do house calls, and I go and I visit houses of people who are affluent, people who are rich, he said, subhanAllah, they have every hour of their children's times accounted for. When they come back from school at 3 o'clock, they have tennis practice until 5 o'clock. And then from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, they have piano lessons. And then from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, it's dinner. And then from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, it's homework. And then after that, they go to sleep and they have to do it the same way. And it's just like that. They've got their children's programs busy. And we may not necessarily want to send our children to piano practice, but you know what? I'm sure there are tahfidh programs here. I'm sure there's exercise programs that we can put our children in. I'm sure there are lots of things that we can fill them. Do not, brothers and sisters, please do not put your children in front of a TV screen and then hope that they're going to be okay. Do not put them in Sunday school for 3 hours a week after putting them in public school and then putting them in front of a TV and then expecting that these 3 hours of Sunday school are going to make up for 50 or 60 or 70 hours during the week where they are listening and watching the most evil of things. And wallahi, the way that this society is going, the things that I grew up watching are completely different from the things that children now are growing up watching. The things that we were watching, we thought that was bad. And then now we're looking and we're like, subhanAllah. إِنَّمَا الْأُمَمُ بِالْأَخْلَاقِ مَا بَقِيَ إِنْهُمْ ذَهَبَتْ أَخْلَاقُهُمْ ذَهَبُ. That the akhlaq of the people is just changing at such a rapid pace. And things just keep going from worse to worse to worse. So you need to make sure, inshallah ta'ala, that you are accounting for your children's screen time, the time that they're watching. And there's an article that you can read, inshallah ta'ala, when you leave it outside. It mentions it's called the Big Disconnect, Protecting Childhood and Family Relationships in the Digital Age. And it mentions a psychiatry professor from Harvard, or a psychiatrist at Harvard, and she interviewed hundreds of kids. And she found that children who between the ages of 2 and 4, I'm sure all of us are familiar with our children just being addicted to our iPads. 2-year-olds and the 3-year-olds and the 4-year-olds, they may know how to use iPads even better than some of us. And it's really detrimental for them. Really detrimental. It really the age of 4 and 5 years old and 6 years old, where children have their wildest imaginations. You give them a stick and they turn it into a horse, and they pretend to be a cowboy for hours, and they're fine with something like that. Their imaginations are so creative. You see now children where you're putting them in front of screens for hours, and that imagination is gone. They're simply just standing in front of screens the entire day, every single day. And parents just, as long as it's keeping them quiet, then that's okay. It's not okay, because it harms them in the long run. It harms their creativity and it harms their ability, their cognitive abilities as well. The third thing that I wanted to mention is to look into plans in detail. When you're getting your children cell phones and all these things, look into the plans in detail and simply ask yourself the questions. Do they need, does my child need the internet, for example? Does my child need unlimited texting? Does my child need to have video chatting capabilities? Do they need all of these things? Also, I wanted to mention, subhanAllah, coming up with some rules. There was a woman, and this is in the article that I hope that everyone, inshallah, when you leave, you take this, because it was really a beautiful contract that a mother made her child sign. When she gave her son her iPhone, and she made him sign a contract, it's called an iPhone contract. And basically this contract involved a number of points. So for example, one of the points was, it's not your iPhone, it's my iPhone. I bought it, and I'm giving it to you, and at any point I can take it away. Aren't I the greatest? Number 2, I will always know the password. Number 3, if me or your father calls, you will always, always, always respond. Number 4, no pornography. Number 5, and she just kept giving him, it was around 18 points, and they're all very, very valid points. And then the beauty of the agreement is now the child has agreed to all of these things. It's all been communicated, it's all been understood, it's all been signed for. And if at any point in time the child breaks any one of these rules, then what is expected? What is expected is that that phone is going to be taken away. A lot of times, a lot of fathers, even fathers, they have a problem with their children's phones and all of these things. And if they were to take it away, the child would say, why do you take away my phone? As if the child understands that it is their right and it is their property. One of the beautiful things about this contract is that it makes it very clear. You and your wealth belong to your father. Right? It's a very beautiful concept. Number 4, the last thing that I wanted to mention, inshallah, is to make sure that even with regards to young people, that I'm not advocating that parents all of a sudden become like really hard and spying on their kids and all that. I'm not advocating that at all. I'm advocating communication. I'm advocating that you sit down and communicate with your children, that you make things clear, that you try as best as you can, inshallah ta'ala, to empower them when they are young, to make sure, inshallah ta'ala, that you give them responsibility and all of these things, so that we do not extend this adolescence period as well, that we don't extend the period of adolescence, this extended adolescence that my generation and those younger are experiencing, where at the age of 35 and 40, they're still, playing with video games and doing all of these things, because when they were young, they were not given responsibilities by the generation before them. Make sure, inshallah ta'ala, that you're giving your children responsibilities, that you're holding them accountable for mistakes, inshallah ta'ala, so that they continue to nourish and that they continue to grow. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to give us tawfiq and sadad. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to grant us the ability to enter paradise. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-jannah wa ma qarraba ilayha min qawlin wa amal. Wa na'udhu bika min an-nar wa ma qarraba ilayha min qawlin wa amal. Allahumma ati nufusana taqwaha. Zakkiha anta khayru man zakkaha. Anta waliyuha wa mawlaha. Allahumma aqsim lana min khashyatika ma tahulu bihi baynana wa bayna ma'siyatik. Wa min ta'atika ma tuballighuna bihi jannatak. ومن اليقين ما تهون به علينا مصائب الدنيا متعنا اللهم بأسماعنا وأبصارنا وقواتنا أبدا ما أبقيتنا واجعله الوارث منا واجعل ثأرنا على من ظلمنا وانصرنا اللهم على من عادانا ولا تجعل مصيبتنا في ديننا ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا ولا إلى النار مصيرنا واجعل الجنة هي دارنا اللهم اصلح شباب المسلمين اللهم جنبهم شر الفراغ والجدل يا ذا الجلال والإكرام اللهم اصلح نساء المسلمين اللهم جنبهن التبرج والسطور يا عزيز يا غفور اللهم اجعلهن قرة أعين لأزواجهن وأولادهن اللهم رحماك بأهلنا في الشام اللهم رحماك بأهلنا في الشام اللهم رحماك بأهلنا في الشام اللهم الطف بمصر أهلها اللهم الطف بمصر أهلها وسائر بلاد المسلمين يا أرحم الراحمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وقوموا إلى صلاتكم يرحمني يرحمكم الله.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله